Hello and welcome to another comedian's interview for my blog and podcast, A Rich Comic Life. My name is Richard Gill and my blog describes my experiences of watching over 1,500 comedians and counting for the last 50 years. I'm delighted to welcome my guest today. It's the comedian Don Biswas. Yay! Hello. Hello.
Hello, Richard. How you doing?
I'm all right, my friend. How are you?
Yeah, not bad at all.
Great to see you, and thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, it's taken me a long time. We'll be going back and forth, and I've got here.
Well, I'm delighted. You are a very, very busy comedian.
More disorganized than busy, I'd say.
Well, it's great to have you here, and the first question I'd like to ask you is how did you become a comedian in the first place?
I fell into it accidentally, and
Right.
that's kind of apt for someone who's got dyspraxia, which affects my coordination.
Right.
So I fell into it accidentally. In 2006, as far as that, I went to an open mic night with my sister, and her boss was performing as a vet. And I
Right.
thought I could do that. And this was at the Bedford pub in Balham. For those who don't know, that's where they had the
I know it
banana.
well, yeah. Yeah.
Great little South London venue for music and comedy. And my sister's boss was performing at the open mic night as a vet. And I thought I could do that, even though my sister warned me against it. I wrote a few jokes in university, so I signed up. And a few months later, I came back and did my first gig there with rest in peace Ed Balls, who was the promoter there for the Bedford in Balham on Tuesdays. And yeah, and then it's just started from there in November 2006.
So that's when it was. Your first gig was November 2006.
Yes, but if anyone asks, I've only been taking it seriously since last week. It judged me last week.
A good answer. So when you started, did you go the way of 5 minutes here and there in pubs to get the experience, where you take a bringer along, or is that how you started? You had a bundle of gigs to go to, or how did you actually get the momentum going?
I think when I started, there wasn't any bringer gigs back then. I think it was slightly easier. And so I just kept going without thinking about it. So I had
Right.
gigs, and I did some more gigs in the Bedford in Balham. Then I went to a well-known club called the Lions Den at that time, which was in the King's Cross.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was more open mic nights back in the day, which had a bit of an audience. And yeah, I just latched onto them and just started gigging without thinking about it or having a plan, just doing the same material. And yeah, I just did it for the fun of it. That's
That's
all.
brilliant. Can you describe more about your first gig? How did you feel when you walked out onto the stage?
I was nervous, but the gig went well. Um, the gig went well, by the way. That's not being arrogant. My second gig went terribly. So just to put it into context, but yeah, because there was a lot of because it was my first gig, there was a lot of love in the room, which was really nice. One of the guys I gig with, one of my first gig ever was a gig with a guy called Joe Bohr.
Hmm?
You might have had him. He's a great comedian, still gigging today.
Was very funny, yeah.
And yeah, it went well. Not every joke landed. Obviously, I wasn't perfect. It was my first gig, but yeah, I I could tell you the jokes. I did some of them, but some of the jokes I did, but the reference are all 2006.
Right.
So yeah, but yeah, it was okay. It wasn't far from perfect, but yeah, that's when I caught the bug. And afterwards, I was just in cloud nine, and I was looking around for other gigs in
That's
and around
brilliant.
London,
That's so
and I
good.
saw a gig. I saw a poster for the Electric Mouse on the internet, and I said I could do that. And there are people like Simon Ansell on it, I think Simon Evans, and I thought, yeah, I could be as good as those. I was in Cloud Cuckoo Land at the time, but
So there was obviously early on, from very early on, a determination for you to do it and do well.
I don't. So the thing is, I've got ADHD, so there was that determination. But it was more of a determination just to gig, and I got addicted to it. I mean, obviously, as I said, I've seen those pictures of Simon Amsterdam on the Electric Mouse comedy website, a gig which is still going really well, to my knowledge. And yeah, I wanted to be as good as those guys, but I had no plan to execute it. After that, I just kept gigging for the enjoyment of it. I
Yeah,
just come out of depression, so around the same time, I had a bit of a breakdown.
right.
So what happened was I've candidly spoken about this. I attempted suicide, and that's when I found out. Around the same time, I got sacked from a few jobs. Not exactly the same time, a few months afterwards, and found out after getting sacked that I had dyspraxia, autism, and ADHD. Basically, I was neurodivergent, and I think comedy was a great tonic just to get me out and get me out of my shell.
It certainly is. Certainly for me, it's given me an enormous amount of confidence just sitting on the front row watching you all and being part of the scene.
100%.
Yeah,
I mean,
really. I
comics.
mean, as for me personally, my confidence has gone through the roof.
Yeah, my confidence has proved low. I still got to work on it, but when I first started, fellow comics told me I couldn't even talk to them. But now
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sitting here articulating myself a lot better than I did like 17 years ago. So,
Well, good
yeah,
for you. It's worth a round of applause. That good for
thank
you,
you.
my
It's just
friend.
huge benefits.
Yeah.
So, I've even got brother-in-law who's thinking about doing stand-up comedy to work on that as well and to improve on public speaking.
Why
So,
not?
yeah, there are huge benefits to doing comedy other than just making it as a professional comedian.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, what do you like to talk about on stage? Do you have any specific themes?
Yes, about halfway through, I became more political.
Right.
Not halfway through, about 10 years now, 11 years. So I talk about politics. Obviously, I mentioned the dyspraxia, ADHD, autism. So I talk about being neurodivergent and I talk about having an overbearing Indian mother. So I'll do one joke in my set. It's saying that I'm 39 years old, although I'm a bit older now. And I still remember the pandemic because I live with my overbearing Indian mother. So I've been in lockdown for 39 bleeding years.
Ah,
And
very
I,
good.
and I say without an overbearing Indian mother, I wouldn't have a career. But that self-deprecating nature allows me to talk about the politics,
Yeah,
talk about issues like Israel and Gaza and austerity. And it also allows me to talk about being neurodivergent.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
I think it's better to come from a place of self-deprecation. And my life is, look, I'm happy where I am at the moment in comedy, but it's not all, as my mum says, a bed of roses. And I think it's better to come from a self-deprecating way than being smug about politics and stuff like that.
Very much so. I totally agree. Um, tell me about your writing process for a routine or a show. How do you go about writing a routine?
I don't have a writing process. All I do is I do what comes into my mind, and then I write it on Facebook or Twitter. And that's just lazy. I need to sit down a little bit more and actually think about what I'm writing. Even if I don't find anything funny, I can always come back to it. But I haven't got the patience to do that. Write a gag or one liner here onto Facebook to see if people like it.
Wow. So
And
when you're doing your 10 minutes at, for example, Surface of Funny, where I've seen you, is that like a mixture of everything for the last couple of weeks or whatever?
what I tend to do is I tend to keep to the same set,
Right.
and then I'll add a few new bits on. So we so funny. It's a great night. I know Leslie who runs it.
Yeah.
So she's seen me before, so I can sneak a couple of new bits in the middle, but it tends to be the same set because the subjects I do talk about, like politics, they're all done in the form of gags and one-liners. So I
Yeah.
tend to add one liner here, one over there, and yeah, slowly let it build organically. So it can be a very slow process to build in an hour show, but that's the way I do it.
Good for you. Good for you. What do you think makes a good comedian?
That's a that's a hard question because I saw that when you I don't want to give the game away, but when he sent me some of the questions, but for me, what made me a better comedian is not giving a toss what other people think about you. I really think I started getting better from my own personal journey is when I didn't care how bad or good the gig was going to go. Because
Yeah.
before the pandemic, I was lucky enough to get signed by an agency. I used to die in every open spot, like in the comedy store, because it got into my head even though I knew that I could write half decent gags. So I think what makes a good comedian is not to care too much, obviously prepare for the gig, have confidence, not to be cocky. I think those are the two most important things for me personally.
The wonderful thing about the art of stand-up comedy, I think, is that you can go out on stage and talk about whatever you want. There are no restrictions whatsoever. So to not care less about what other people think is a very good way of going about what you're trying to project onto the stage, I think. So well done, you.
Yeah, I really think about that. Sometimes it can go the other way, where I was watching the video of myself at the beer cat, and sometimes I need to tweak little things like stand more straight because being dyspraxic, sometimes I move about too much.
Right.
But little things that like that I could work on. I maybe need to be a bit more just watch my videos back and just tweak my performance and make it a bit more professional. But yeah, I advise the thing with stand-up comedy and life in general, life is and I've got to remind myself, I never stick to this advice, but life is a journey, not a destination. So just enjoy it. I did a gig yesterday to a few hundred people, yeah, and that might be it for me. That might be the best for me, but that's still a brilliant achievement. So
Yeah, too right.
people need to realize that people are too stuck in either the past or the future. Like, why is that guy doing well? Why can't I get to that level? I'm exactly like that still to this day, but I've got to remind myself to stay in the present and just enjoy the gigs I get.
Exactly. You know how well you're going to do, and you've achieved it because you've played 200 or 300 people, and then you set yourself another little target, another little target, another little target, and you see how far you can go.
But that's the thing with those setting those targets. Jim Jeffries had a talk about depression. Yeah, he was talking about being the best open spot. Then he said, "I'm better than all you fuckers." And then he went off to America, and then he went on to films, and he didn't make it in films. And he says that, and then he says that he got depressed because he couldn't make it into films. He hasn't realized how far he's come, you know. And people are
Yeah.
never happy. Maybe that's what drives probably more financially successful comedians because they're never happy. I was speaking to one guy I was gigging with at the Glee Club. He used to work with Sean Locke a lot,
Mm.
and he said that he wasn't all as satisfied with his end result. And sometimes I think we just need to take a look back and see what we've achieved. And comedy itself is a personal journey. It's easy said than done, but do not compare yourselves to others. You can learn from others and how what they're doing in terms of social media or what they're doing to get the bigger audiences, but it's your own journey.
But I think as well with comedy, it goes right back certainly to when I started watching comedy. The first uh, um, double act that I truly loved were Morecambe and Wise, and I can remember
Brilliant.
aged 5 year old watching them with the whole family in Carlisle, and everybody young and old crying with laughter at them on Christmas Day. And yet Eric Morecambe forever was trying to better himself, was trying to be better, was trying to be
Yeah,
better. Hancock comes to mind, where he had a it was quite a depressive character, but again he was trying to better himself. There's something, as you say, self-depreciation that
100%.
everybody going for the underdog, and comedy is a classic example of that, and that's why I've seen so many of them. Whenever I go, I seem to now, having seen so many, just know whether or not the comedian's going to be funny or not if I've never seen them before. And it's with the experience of going to watch them, and I suppose as well the experience of doing the gigs. The more experience, it's all about the experience. The more experience you've got, the better you become. Yeah,
100%. I think it's interesting you talk about Morecambe Wise
yeah,
because that's people. There's people who are probably very good comedians who've given up, but they haven't got that, not the desire. I wouldn't say that's the word. They're happy with themselves, so they don't need to chase stand-up comedy. I don't know what's it called, serotonin or whatever, but they've got the chemicals in their bodies, or I'm maybe talking rubbish here, but they've got something in them that is happy and content with their lives. So they
yeah.
don't need to chase that success. Whereas someone would probably like Morecambe and Wise, maybe they weren't happy with just being enough on TV. They always wanted more, and maybe that's what makes a more what is considered a more successful comedian traditionally, as we see success playing to bigger audiences, making more money, and so forth.
It's an interesting argument because there's so many comedians who fall into that bracket. You know, uh, um, they're all they all get as successful as they want to be, but sometimes you feel they could do more. But it's all down to the individual themselves, you know.
Yeah, and yeah, it's just some people want it, and we're discussing this with another comedian. You can tell sometimes, without being rude, even though I'm autistic, you can smell ambition on certain comedians.
Hmm.
They really want it badly, and I think that's a great thing. That's what will probably propel them to get to the next level or a
Yeah,
higher
yeah,
level than myself. But the problem is when it doesn't happen. So you need to check yourself mentally as well.
very
So
much so. Yeah, yeah. Um, I've seen you a number of times, and I've enjoyed you immensely on stage. I think you're a
thank you.
very funny man and a very funny comic talent. Um, I can't imagine you ever having a bad gig. Can you describe your best and worst gig, please?
My best gig was it was 2014. I think it was one of the first gigs back after my dad passed away, and I was doing a gig for Nigel Lovell,
Right,
and he's a Leighton Orient fan, and it was a fundraiser for loads of Leighton Orient fans, and it just went. Every joke just landed, and
brilliant.
and I was just on before Terry Alderton. It was a great lineup. So
Oh,
yeah,
he's brilliant.
he's absolutely brilliant, just a genius. And
Yeah.
yes, so yeah, it just went really well. Where just every joke got a round of applause, and that hardly ever happens. My worst gig is I was doing a black comedy show when I first started in 2000 and it was about 2008, so a year after I started, and I was so bad they had to take me off after the third joke.
Oh, mate, no.
And yeah, because I was just new and I was trying out new bits, and
Oh,
the jokes didn't land uh, and then I went to the comedy store gong show afterwards and got gonged off after 40 seconds. So, so yeah, two really bad gigs in a night.
I'm sorry for laughing,
So yeah, I
but
always make this.
I was
I
just gonna.
always make this joke about it. Someone told
Yeah.
me this joke. When I first did the gong show at the comedy store, for those who don't know, it's the way if you don't last, that they give you free cards to audience members, and if you're not funny, the audience members will put the cards up. And then one time I lasted 32 seconds, and
Wow.
someone lasted 30 seconds. So the guy who lasted 30 seconds, I gave him a little bit of advice, just how you can go a bit longer. So someone said someone said that to me. Is that what you did? So I just used that as a joke for antidote. But yeah, yeah. But the Gong Show doesn't mean a thing because the one time I won the Gong Show, afterwards I started to get better at it. I managed to win it, and one of the guys who
Brilliant.
came on last or was near the bottom was Nick Helm.
Oh,
Yeah, look where he is now.
yeah.
None of this matters. Gong shows work for me because my comedy is very one-liner heavy, especially back in the day where I was essentially a one-liner merchant.
But I
So
love that.
none
I
of
lo-
this matters.
yeah.
If you do badly in a gong show, it's okay. For me, with comedy, the way I see it is just enjoy it. Have a plan if you want to become successful. And if you do become successful, everything else is a bonus. So if you get a paid gig, bonus. Move on to the next thing, but just remember, just to enjoy it. And the
You
person
meant
who told me that was Ivan Dambina. Just
oh,
enjoy it.
there's so many names being flung around, all these brilliant people.
Yeah.
Um, the Gong Show reminds me of the story I've told many a comedian on this podcast about my only go at being a comedian. It happened years ago when I was at the Edinburgh Fringe. I just passed my driving test in Carlisle, and I know the promoter. I knew the promoter then at the Free Fringe, and I said I think I can be a stand-up comedian. I can make people laugh in pubs. He said we've got a gong show for old people in the Haymarket on a Monday afternoon. Couldn't be worse. Um, and I went on stage. So I walked out. There's three people in the audience, three drunks. And the first thing I said was, "Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. People think I look like Eddie the Eagle Edwards, the ski jumper, but I can't see the resemblance myself. And of course, I'm his double." And one old fella at the back just went, "Fuck off!" and gumped us off. I lasted 20 seconds. So
I've seen people get absolutely angry by gong shows.
yeah, avoid.
I saw one guy, I won't mention his name. He did the gong show. He got angry. They gonged him off. And so, but the compere brought him back on as a joke. He didn't know you see it. And so he continued. They still gonged him off.
Wow,
But
it's
the guy, because
horrible.
the compere was a red. So the guy got really angry and called him a ginger so and so. So
Yeah,
I say to any new comedians to the Gong Show, it's not the be end and end all of it,
it's
you
not.
know?
No,
No.
never say never again for me. But
You
that
never
was
know.
that was. I knew from then on that my vocation was sitting in the audience supporting you all because I know what it's like.
You
Let's
say
move
never.
on. You mentioned at the start about nerves. Do you suffer from nerves before you go on stage? And if so, how do you combat them?
Not as much now. So
No.
no, if I do come back then I just remind I don't really have nerves now as much because I remember this is just a job at the end of the day. So
Yeah.
I've done open mic nights recently where I was the last act on, and I've done some material which is considered gold in my, and it just got no laughs. So you become because you just had 20 acts on, so there's no such thing as nerves. You know how the gig's going to go well. You don't know how it's going to go well all the time, but you got some idea.
Yeah.
So like yesterday, I did an Asian gig, and yeah, the first couple, I'm not an Asian comedian or a Desi gig, an Indian gig. I'm not. Uh, Stereotypically Indian person, but I did okay because I learned how to play those gigs.
Yeah.
So I didn't get nervous because I knew that some jokes were going to go well and some were going to die flat. So don't get me wrong, I was a little bit nervous, but not as much as I used to be. So I've been doing it for 17 years. So
Wow.
if it goes well, it goes well. If it doesn't, just go home, watch Match of the Day,
Yeah. Well,
and
you mentioned Leighton Orient. My team's Carlisle, so we always play you. We'll be playing you again this season.
oh yeah, that's Nigel Lovell. Yeah, I'm not like unfortunately I'm a bit of I'm a Liverpool fan, but
Oh, well,
I
they're
used
my
to be
Premier
there.
League team.
Huh?
Liverpool are my Premier
Ah,
League team.
brilliant. Yeah. But yeah, they're great. But yeah, so yeah, I do still get a bit nervous, but going 17 years, that you can't change what's going to happen at the gig, so just enjoy it.
Would you say that any nerves that you may have go when you speak into the microphone first or when you get your first laugh?
I think they probably more go when I get my first laugh,
Yeah,
but sometimes I might take two or three jokes. But even when I speak into the microphone, I'm not as nervous as I was. Going back earlier, saying that I used to get so nervous, I used to die in every open spot. So
yeah.
there's no point being nervous. It's not some nerves help some comics, but it doesn't help me. So there's no point being nervous. You're going to have a few nerves being on stage, but the less, the better for me.
I love the confidence. It's so good. How do you remember all your routines? Do you have pointers in your head? Do you make notes? Do you write them on your hand? Words? How do you remember what you're going to say?
I stick to the same routine where I'm going to come in a bit lazy since my last Edinburgh show in 2023.
Right.
So, but I'm starting to write new stuff. But yeah, it's usually the same stuff. And when I'm doing a new material night, if I haven't allowed a pad of paper, I just write a few one-liners that I haven't done before, and that's it really. Or if it's a pro night, I can just try and remember a couple in my head.
That's
And if they
brilliant.
keep going
That's,
well, then I can add them on. But usually I do forget one or two jokes, but that doesn't matter. If a gig's gone well and you forget two or three jokes, and that's the bonus, then he said you could have done a longer set with those jokes added on. So yeah, but yeah, I just add one or two jokes in the middle.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You mentioned your Edinburgh show in 2023. Let's move on to Edinburgh properly. I'm very lucky to be able to go to Edinburgh every year. It's my holiday, and I go and see about 60 shows in a week, 50, 60 shows in a
Brilliant.
week. So by the end of it, I need another holiday. Anyway, I love it. I love to go, and I've branched out much
Brilliant.
more with more fringes and festivals. So I go to Leicester, I go to Hastings, I go to Brighton. I'm going to Hull in November. This has been recorded September 24, so I'm going to Hull in November, and Leicester, of course, in February. Um, Tell me about your experience of your first Edinburgh Fringe. When did you go up? What year did you go up? Did you go up as a punter? Have you done shows as part of it with other comedians, your solo shows, and any other festivals you've attended or appeared on?
First time I did it was 2011. I just went up as a punter. I was a comedian then, but just a punter, just doing a few spots here and there. And I remember that because I saw James A. Castro was doing his first show, and he'd been going the same time as me. And I thought that guy's crazy to do a show after 3 years. But I didn't realize that he's probably one of the, if not the best comic of our generation.
Oh, I think yeah,
So
he's
yeah,
so good.
and the year after he got nominated for the main show. So
Yeah.
shows you how good he was. So yeah, I remember seeing people like James Acaster, Nish Kumar, and stuff like that. But yeah, but then I went up properly 3 years later because I never took it as seriously as them because I got knocked out for a few New York competitions and I was discovering political comedy. So my head was all over the place. So I wasn't in that space. I'm
Yeah.
going to go for it. I went back to square one where I'm just going to enjoy the shows, and if anything comes out of it, that's a bonus. So 2014, I did a double hander with a friend called Willem Argos, and we just mucked about for a couple of weeks. We called it political power chords because I was a political comedian and he was a musical comedian. Terrible
Brilliant,
name.
brilliant. And tell me more about your solo show in 20, was it 2023? Was that the first solo show?
It's the second solo show. I did one called in 2017 called Left Wing Conspiracy Theories with Dyspraxia. Uh, it's not a great title, but it got people in because it does exactly what it says in the tin.
Yeah,
People said, why don't you call it like being Don Biswas, mind your own Biswas, or like
that's nice.
don't like that punny title. If you're an unknown comedian, I love Joe Wells, like he calls it the king of the autistics or
Yeah,
daddy autistic. You got to be as literal as possible if no one knows who you are. And yeah, the first show was well, I didn't get only got one review, but I really enjoyed it, Free Fringe. But the second show was in 2023, and I all went out. I paid for PR. My agent told me that would be good. I'm glad I did it. I went to a paid venue. I just come on to back of doing a. I was lucky enough to get chosen to do a Radio 4 special, a Radio 4 show. I was extremely lucky. One of the
brilliant.
reasons why I got it is because after the pandemic, mental health and neurodiversity was at the forefront.
Yeah,
So I went all out just to see that I can do an Edinburgh show and just to tell like people in TV, radio, or anywhere else that I've got that hour within me and I can. And it surprisingly went okay. Actually, it was hard to get
brilliant.
the people in because it was £12 was too much for an unknown comedian, but I did get some really nice reviews,
That's brilliant. Well
and I'm
done,
glad I
you.
did it. So
Yeah, oh yeah,
I
yeah.
invested properly, and I made sure. I know I keep mentioning names, but there's a guy called Matt Price, and he helped me direct it, and he just like made it so much of a better show. It was called The Revolution Will Be Disorganized. So little things he did was the first 10 minutes. I asked the audience what would they bring to a revolution, and the best answer I got was a guy from Glasgow, and he simply said weapons. So little things like that made the show better. It made it into, instead of a club set, it made it into an actual show. So I thank Matt Price for that. For anyone out there, check out Matt Price. So he's
Oh,
signed
he's
for this.
brilliant. He's so good. Yeah.
He can do storytelling, he can do gags, he can do everything.
You mentioned earlier as well about James Acaster. He is one of the greatest comedians at the moment, and there is a testimonials page on my blog where loads of friends, family, and above all comedians have put very nice comments about my blog and podcast. And my favourite testimonial is from James Acaster. Literally, he wrote, if I wasn't a comedian, I would happily sit next to Richard Gill all day and make him laugh. And I thought that was genius.
That is brilliant. I thought James A. Cash the story. I did a sitcom called The
Yeah,
Juror,
yeah.
and he named the character after me because we started at the same time.
Oh, brilliant.
I did the read through, but I didn't get to film the pilot because I am so shit at acting that I failed to audition to play the part of myself. There is someone out there who plays a better version of me than I do. So I only had one line. It was my first acting job, and I effed it up. And the only person who didn't get apparently had to audition for even the part for the read throughs and stuff like that. And the only person who got a free pass was Felicity Kendall and myself.
Wow.
Yeah, he just chose me as one line as a character. It was just because he knew me and he had a character called Don. But I was so bad at the audition, they had to get someone else to play me.
Oh, mate.
So, well, not just play me, but play a character called Don, who was slightly autistic. So yeah,
That's brilliant, though.
that's how
I
bad I
would,
am at acting. So,
I would love to chat to him on here if I could get him, but difficult to get hold of. But he's a wonderful
yeah, he's so
comedian.
busy now, isn't he?
Yeah, very very busy, very
Brilliant.
popular, and deservedly so. Um, to date, what has been your comedy highlight? Have you got one?
Probably been on the BBC was comedy highlight.
Yeah,
Yeah. And probably they're doing the BBC Asian Network earlier this year.
fantastic.
Uh, because it's a really hard gig to do. And as I said, I'm not a Desi Indian comic. And people who've done the BBC Asian Network, it can be often a hard gig because a lot of the people who watch it haven't seen comedy before. I'd done it before in 2017 and I died on my ass big time. But I thought, should I do it again? It could be bad again, but yeah, I did it again and it went a lot better. And I was just a lot more, it's just because I had an agent. I wasn't as scared as I used to be or nervous on stage. So it showed you I'd grown a lot. And this time it was a lot better because it was a paid gig. So people who actually wanted to watch comedy came in and wanted to see me and the other comics as well. So yeah, that's probably I've got a clip of it on YouTube. So yeah, that's my biggest achievement to date, probably.
Well done, you. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
So good. I'm so
I really
pleased for
appreciate
you.
it.
So good, so good.
Is it?
And following on from that, do you have any ambitions as a comedian? By that I mean, do you want to be on TV? Do you want your own quiz show, anything like that?
My only ambition, and this sounds very it sounds very wanky, pretentious. I just want to spread my political message and I just want to go on tour. So I've done a lot of pro-Palestinian benefits. I want to talk about left-wing politics and the way I see the world and how talk about stuff like corporate greed. And I just want to become a touring comedian. That's all I want to be.
Good for
I don't care
you.
about TV. If I get TV or radio, that's a really bonus. But I just want to be able to tour every couple of years.
That's brilliant. You'd have got on so well with my dad. God bless him. His legacy was he was a union man, and he was the president of Nalgo in 1984.
Ah, brilliant.
And two of the other unionists, two of the unions joined together with Nalgo to form Unison, and that's where we are now with Unison. And
Oh, that's
he
amazing. Massive union.
he was an extraordinary man, and he was very proud of. He always used to sit at home, and I always used to go to a lot of TV recordings, and he always used to ring me up and go, "I've heard you again," because he could not hear me, you know.
That's
But
brilliant.
we were very proud of him, and we went to see him get inaugurated as Nalgo president, and he did a lot of good in the
Amazing.
world. And thank God, you know, really, because you know, it's just been
I think
ridiculous the state of the
we
country
need
for
more
years.
people in the world like your dad. I really do think that. And I'm a bit of an old school socialist, and this is going to maybe piss a few people off. But there's a lot of comedians out there who I think are a little bit greedy. So
Right.
what I'm saying is that there's loads of comedians on TV, and it's not necessarily them, but it could be their agents. But the, they said live comedy is worth £1 billion, but a lot of people at the bottom or regular circuit comedians, myself, are not seeing that. And what we need to do is we need bigger comedians to help us more.
Right.
I know it's not their job to help us, and I know they've got family and kids to look after, and I know certain comedians have done that. But we need to spread it's like a greater redistribution of income and wealth in the circuit, give more opportunities to working class comics, and hence why Edinburgh's becoming so expensive, or
Yeah.
help people on social media and stuff like that. And I think that's not what a lot of the bigger comedians are not doing that. And I think they should do that. They have no right to do it, but as a socialist, I would like them to do it.
I think talking about the Edinburgh Fringe, I think there must be a cap, certainly on the expense, on You
100%.
know, because now I look at the Edinburgh Fringe. When I first went to the Edinburgh Fringe, one of my favourite places in the world is the Pleasance Courtyard. I absolutely love it. I like to get a pint of Guinness, sit there with my friends or on my own, and just watch. Just people watch, and comedians
Yeah,
can go by. It's the most wonderful thing. And every year I go, it's always got more advertising on it, and it
yeah.
sours it a bit, and there has to be an expense gap, an expense stop on it, an expense leveler, because
Uh,
now I don't think it is a fringe. I think it's more a promotional event, and it's such a shame that, for example, working class comedians can't
100%.
afford to go. I mean, there was an interview on television last year. I think it was a band as well, a music band, and they had won £10,000 in a competition at the Edinburgh Fringe. And they were interviewed, and they said the interviewer said, "Oh, that's fantastic." He said, "What are you going to spend the £10,000 on? Well done." And the answer was, "Oh, it will go towards the accommodation for the rest of the Edinburgh run." So they can't even enjoy the money, which
It's,
there's something very very wrong.
if the fringe
uh,
is not careful, it's going to lose out to social media.
yeah,
If you can invest that money in social media, loads of people who are good at social media can turn out themselves, and they'll
yeah,
make more money than club gigs and probably make more money when they go to Edinburgh. So Edinburgh's the people who run the fringe must be careful, or they
yeah.
could be lost forever.
Well, even the other fringes that are as good an experience of
Yeah,
going are cheaper, and also as well.
100%.
Certainly at Leicester this last year,
Brilliant festival.
I was talking to a comedian, and he told me that a lot of the regular acts that go to Edinburgh in 2024 could only afford to go for a week instead of the whole run because of the price increase. You know,
It's ridiculous. And
which is not good. You know.
what's happening now? It used to be a place to discover new talent, but like
Mm.
there's people going to Edinburgh now they've made it, and then they go to Edinburgh just to practice their shows. So it's becoming a rich man's playground.
We shall hopefully see, my friend. Um, who are your
Hopefully.
favourite comedians, past and present? Did you have comedy growing up?
Yeah, I watch comedy. I watch the usual things, being British Asian. I watch Goodness Gracious Me. I watch Jack D Alive with Apollo. Past comedians who I've discovered. I love Bill Hicks, obviously being political,
That is
because
amazing.
he just did not care. He could die on his arse, but he was there to have a message. He was like a philosopher, the same as George Carlin.
Yeah,
And he was talking about some of the issues that I want to talk about. Like, or for him, he was talking about Kennedy assassination. So yeah, and for me, I get a big buzz out of making a joke that no one about a topic that no one knows about and make that funny, whether it's austerity or talking about secret societies being a bit of a conspiracy theory. I'd rather make that funny because I think I could do a joke about being Indian, which I do loads of Indian jokes, but they're 10 a penny. But I love talking about politics. And if I can make that funny, that gives me a huge buzz. So Bill Hicks is one. Another one is probably Paul Schiller. I think he's brilliant because he's Bengali like me, and he's a gag merchant as well. He tells great stories, but they're all in the form of gags. So those two are probably my favourites of all time.
wow. I saw
So,
Bill Hicks. I was very fortunate enough to see
wow.
him live. I saw him at the Royal Exchange Theatre at Manchester in about 1988, 90, something like that. And he came on stage at midnight, and he did an hour and a half, and the
Amazing.
audience were transfixed. He could just say whatever he wanted. The confidence and the delivery was spot on. His routine about advertising is one of the
Brilliant.
funniest things I've ever heard. And I agree. I've just very recently had an article very kindly published at the British Comedy Guide, and
Amazing.
it's to celebrate my 50 years, and I gave them 25 show moments, so things that affected me, and he's in there. I 100% agree with you. I think he was one of the best comedians. It was such a tragedy that he died so young, because what he could have done, what he could
I
have done
wish he was
on the
around
club was
today.
incredible. Yeah, he
I
he
wish
is.
him and George Carlin.
Yeah, yeah. What about more
Uh, uh,
recent ones?
I do love Gary Delaney be the one-liner merchant. I think he's brilliant. I think one of the good ones, because I talk a lot about politics and pro-Palestinian, and I love Frankie Boyle, and I think he's great that he's talking about political issues and also being a gag merchant. So
Yeah,
those two, Frankie Boyle especially, and I think we need more comedians like Bill Hicks. Even Frankie Boyle referenced Bill Hicks in his joke in one
yeah.
of his en route into his show. And we need more people like Frankie Boyle, there's not enough big comedians out there who are stepping out and talking about stuff that other people are too scared to talk about, and that's why I like Frankie.
Good man, good man. For me, my first ever gig was Les Dawson in 1974 on holiday with the family.
Amazing.
I was 7, and he was unforgettable. And then a year later, I saw Tommy Cooper, and he was just incredible. The curtains opened. He's lying on a bed, and he doesn't do anything. And one woman in the crowd is crying with laughter, and it trickles round, so everybody is crying with laughter, and he hasn't done a thing. And after about 5 minutes, he pops his head up. He goes, "What? Somebody come on!" It was
That's
genius.
amazing.
So
That's
I
brilliant.
started to write all these gigs down, and hence I've got an enormous spreadsheet of every single act I've ever seen. Hence the blog, hence the podcast. That's how it all started off. But
And
I've
who do
seen
you remind
everybody.
me of?
It's amazing. I've seen Ken Dodd. I've seen the two Ronnies. Um, on and on and on. And in the 80s, I first came down to London in 1988. My first comedy store bill would be Richard Morton,
Legend. I love
Linda
him.
Smith, God bless her. She was brilliant. John Maloney, and Charles Fleischer was top of the bill, who was never heard of again. He was an American um, voice artist who would throw voices. And not long after, he went to Hollywood and he voiced Roger Rabbit, so he was never heard of again because he'd done,
Wow, that's
you know,
amazing.
that was him. But then into the 90s with all the come Frank Skinner, French and Saunders, Rick Mail, I saw in Carlisle, he was amazing. Um, I've been very, very lucky in everybody that I've seen, and of course nowadays I go once or twice a week to a comedy gig, and the lovely thing about the blog, as you say, is that it doesn't just support the big hitters; it supports all the new up and coming
Yeah,
comedians. And one of the nicest things about the blog is that it's like a never ending diary, if you like.
it's
It's not a
brilliant.
diary, but it's like a list of acts that I've seen, so I can watch them at the venues. So I saw so and so in 1990, and then I saw them again in 2024. And watching them develop is wonderful, you know. So and it's
It reminds me of Bob Monkhouse
yeah,
because he had those other types as well of like old goon shows and stuff like that. Even like Lenny Henry was on a BBC for documentary about Lenny Henry being an opportunity knocks and stuff.
I
And that's
saw them
great that like with yourself, you've got that archive. So yeah, I think it's very important part of British comedy history.
very much. So. There's a section in my blog called "The Ones That Got Away," and as I said earlier, Morecambe and Wise are top of the list. I'd love to have seen them, but Bob Monkhouse is on there. I thought
Yeah,
as a gag teller he was phenomenal.
amazing.
I mean, when I die, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to die peacefully, like my father, not like one of his screaming passengers. That's a great joke.
Brilliant.
he and when he had the joke book nicked, and somebody gave him
Yeah, I
it
heard
back,
about
I'm
it.
so glad they gave him it back. You know, it's just wonderful, and these moments. It's such a good article. I'm so pleased that the British Comedy Guide published it, because it covers the 50 years. It's amazing, and
It's a
everybody's
great
in it.
piece of history.
Yeah, it's just phenomenal. Like me, do you go to a lot of comedy gigs as a member of the audience, or did you before you became a comedian?
I still, if I got a day off, I would go to a local comedy club if I've got nothing else to do, and there's quite a few in Wimbledon, so I still do that. I need to see more bigger names. I want to see Stuart Lee's latest show. I haven't seen it
Oh,
yet.
it's great.
But the problem is, I talk about being a socialist. There was a guy called Nick Jones.
Yeah,
He watches a lot of comedy shows. He dabbles in stand up. Lovely guy, and he was saying about how he can't afford to see Mick Lee Flanagan because the tickets, even for work in progress, are like over £50 or £60.
ridiculous.
So it's getting a lot harder during the cost of living crisis just to go out even. So no wonder people are watching on Amazon or on Netflix
Yeah.
instead. And that's unfortunate. But what I will tell people is that if you can go to your local comedy club, because it's still very much one of the cheapest things you could do.
And plus, as well, nothing beats live because you're in the moment,
100%, yeah.
you're in the room, and anything can happen. Um, if you're on a bill and you're on first, would you stay and watch the rest of the act?
9 out of 10 times I'll always stay. Only difference is if I'm because I can't drive if I'm far away and I need to catch the last train. That's the only
Yeah,
difference. But 9 out of 10 times, I like the camaraderie, having a beer, watching other acts. Sometimes I won't stay if I've died on my ass, but other than that, yeah, I love
good
staying.
man.
That's always coming late from gigs because but that's to my own detriment in a way because you have people like Jimmy Carr. A lot of these people who became successful comedians left afterwards and they just work on their act to see how they can make it better and polish it. Whereas I just like going to a night and watching and having a few beers. But I'm probably it's good in a way because I've let my comedy grow organically, but maybe I need to get my just to push myself a little bit more to write more again and not just go out and enjoy the gig, but analyze my gigs where I could go better and so forth.
There is nothing better, my friend, than having a few drinks and then going to a comedy club, sitting down, and the lights go
100%.
down, and you think, right, entertain me. And I'm normally very good with the friends I go along with. I'm normally very good at picking who, at least one of them that I recognise on the bill. But I love to go and I've never heard of them either because the magic
Same
is
here. I love that.
finding somebody brand new, and it's like, here we go. I remember
I,
last
I'm doing
home.
a
Carry on.
what's that? Sorry. No, sorry about that. It rudely interrupted. I'm doing a comedy night where they don't even know who's going to be on. I'm helping booking it. And I think
Yeah.
that's the best thing because, especially now, the circuit is so strong. People just come out. You don't know the comedians will be good, generally. And I prefer to watch a comedian I've never heard of, and you might discover a hidden gem.
It's so good because I remember last year I watched the BBC New Comedy Awards, and the first time I ever saw Frankie Monroe, I'd never heard of him.
Oh, yeah,
The actor who
amazing.
plays Frankie Monroe. That was the Monday, and on the Wednesday I went to Hull, and on the Thursday, without realising he'd won the award, they'd booked him, and the audience they didn't have a clue what to expect, and he ended up with me on stage with him, trying to protect his trowel, and at the end of it, he got a standing ovation, and I've seen him 4 or 5 times since, and
He's
it
one of the best newcomer now,
culminated.
hasn't he?
He's just won the best newcomer, and deservedly so, because it reminds me of Reeves and Mortimer. There's a bit of Reeves and Mortimer, a bit of Johnny Vegas, bit of Mighty Boosh, all mixed into one,
Oh, brilliant.
and it's just an amazing creation. So I'm hoping he's going to come on here very soon
Fingers
and
crossed.
praise him for that. But that's it, my friend. The magic of comedy. Long may it reign, because it's such a wonderful art form, and what's not to enjoy? Laughter. It's such a positive thing.
100%. I think, as Bill Hicks said, people forget why they do comedy in the first place. I mean, as long as I don't have to work in the office, I'm extremely lucky to be
Yeah.
doing this job.
Well, I
And
have to
people
do that
forget that.
during the day to pay for the comedy.
Yeah. In a way, that's good in a way because
Yeah.
I'm not averse to getting a part-time job, but what I don't want a job is like 60 hours a week and you
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
get to enjoy life. At least when you're doing your job, you get to fund your
exactly.
enjoyment.
Fun. Yeah,
And
exactly.
for you and for me as well, comedy for me still to this day is 110% a hobby. That's all it ever was and it will be. Anything I make out of it is just a bonus.
Exactly.
I know that
Exactly,
sounds
my friend.
wanky, but that's the way I feel. So,
I've so much enjoyed talking to you. You've been a fantastic guest.
sorry it's been a bit too long, Richard, taking me to get me here. But yeah,
Don't
I've
worry
really
about
enjoyed
it. You're
that.
here now, and it's wonderful to see you.
Brilliant, thank you. Hopefully, you can get Frankie Monroe. Who knows? Maybe James Acaster.
Well, that would be wonderful. That would be
Yeah.
amazing.
If I
Is
see
that
James, I never see him, but I've
no?
bumped into him once in a while. But yeah, I let him know. But
Well, please do
yeah,
tell him
definitely.
because he knows me. Well, he knows me to say hello to, but I haven't got any
No, either right. But if I know
contact or anything like that with him. But
comedy is 6 degrees of separation, so if I know someone who knows him, I'll ask.
who knows? Who
Yeah.
knows? That's how I got Barry Cryer. I was the last person to interview Barry
Oh,
Cryer.
that's amazing. You
Amazing.
know, Peter. He's like me. He's like me. He stays at the last one to stay at a comedy club. He just loves comedy so
Oh,
much.
I mean, he's written for everybody. He knows all the old comedians and the new comedians. He was a joy to interview. I got him through Kevin Day, who'd just been on the podcast. We started
Oh,
talking
that's
about him,
amazing.
and it was so funny because he said, oh yeah. I said, well, if I can get him, it'd be wonderful. He said, oh yeah. He said he'd love to do it. He said,
That's amazing.
but you have to give him a phone call as opposed to an email. So I came back from work and I rang him and I was nervous and he went, hello, is that Richard? I said yes. He said, is
That's
that Mr.
brilliant.
Cryer? Mr. Cryer? He said yes. He said, call me Barry, and I'm reading your blog, and it's bloody marvelous. When are we
That
going
is
to do this?
brilliant.
I was over the moon, you know, and I got a good hour out of him. It was lovely. And what was lovely on that as well was when he sadly passed on, which was awful, was the son sent me a message. His son, and he said you were probably the last person to interview him about his career, and I was really quite moved by it.
That's amazing.
I went along to see his tribute night, and it was so wonderful. He's got a very special place, and again he's in the comedy moments and everything. It's so
Particularly,
lovely this because. As long as I can move, as long as I'm active, I will go to a comedy gig, and the blog will continue forevermore. So, yeah,
that's great. But Barry Fry is probably Barry Fry is one of the biggest superstars, and he's so lovely. That's what I love about comedy. You
yeah,
meet these legends, and they're absolute sweethearts.
they are. They really are. And you know, he would ring up folk every week and tell them a joke to cheer them up and everything. It's just magic, you know. Um, just before we go, please can you let people know your social handles and any other things you'd like to mention, such as a podcast or any shows that you've got due or anything like that?
Just go on to my website www.donbiswascomedy.co.uk. You can sign up straight to a mailing list. Hopefully, one day I can tour, and it's got all my socials on there, so you can click on that.
Well, brilliant, my friend. I'm so looking forward to coming to see you again very soon.
Likewise, yeah, hopefully we'll catch up soon over a drink. Yeah, come to a show.
Definitely. And
And
thank you so much for your time.
cheers. Thank you very much. Cheers, Richard.
And all the best to you. Thanks now.
Okay, cheers. Bye.